When the news of the Krugersdorp Killers first came out in the media, there was a number of contradicting facts or contradicting pieces of information that was spread. But I can completely understand this, and I'm sure most of you can as well, because this whole scenario and this whole story is completely warped. It is chaotic, it is confusing. It's a complete tangled spider web of nonsense and lies. I mean, even Cecilia Steyn herself couldn't keep a fact true, for that matter. So the information that would be spread, I mean, I can only imagine what the poor reporters and the people in the media must have been trying to go through in order to understand this chaos of confusion for what was going on. So I can understand that there would be different facts that were stated in the media because people were still trying to understand and the news was still trying to come out. The truth was still trying to come out, basically. Now, since all of this first came out, I've personally been asked so many questions, and some questions were repeatedly asked as well by many people. Questions I just got so used to being asked and answering. But there was one question that I think, to say the least, it bugged me. It nauseated me. Just the very idea that if this supposed statement or this supposed fact was actually true, it made me feel sick to my stomach. In all honesty, it made me want to throw up. And this question that I'm referring to specifically is, was I in an intimate relationship with Cecilia Steyn? To cut a long story or a long answer short, definitely not. In one of my earlier podcasts, Sexuality in the Group, I'd spoken about, or I had related incidences where Cecilia Steyn had tried to, I suppose you could say, flirt with me, try to see if I would swing in her direction, to see if I was interested in her. And in each of those scenarios when it happened, it honestly completely freaked me out. She would either be met with a very complete blank, horrified stare or response, and then she would laugh it off as if she was just joking around, to where it eventually became a thought in my mind that this was just a nonsense story that Cecilia kept repeating, and it was just a joke. So eventually, whenever she would try flirt with me or try say or do something, I would laugh it off and very quickly move away. The idea of being in a relationship that was more than a friendship with Cecilia Steyn, it made my stomach turn. And even during the time period that I was friends with her, and when I honestly did think that this was all just a joke, it still honestly freaked me out. I did not want to even joke about something like that. I did not want to think about something like that. I did not want people to think anything of the sort, for along those lines. It was just something that was Cecilia was my friend. That was it. To be more than friends with her was just not something I could honestly ever comprehend. And all these years later, to even admit that she was my friend, that she was my best friend, that in itself is still honestly hard to comprehend because of the person she honestly and truthfully was. But to even comprehend or fathom just the thought of a supposed fact or a supposed scenario where Cecilia and I could or might have been or would have been in a relationship that was intimate, it honestly horrifies me, it disgusts me, and my stomach honestly turns. Now, just to add here, before anyone wants to jump the gun and say that I'm trying to be anti-gay or anything of the sort, it's not that. It's just the simple concept of she was my friend, that is it. There was nothing more to it. And to fathom anything more than that was just something that I could never, I don't even honestly have the words for it. It was just a simple, plain and solid no. I mean, if you have to think about it in a straight or heterosexual scenario, if a woman has a man as a best friend and this woman solidly sees this man as her best friend and only her best friend, and there is absolutely no intimate thoughts or feelings of the sort towards him, I would tend to think that if the scenario posed itself where people started asking questions and even started suggesting or directly saying that this woman and this man were actually intimately involved, but yet in this woman's mindset, this man was strictly only her best friend, I don't think she would be very impressed with the statement. She would more than likely laugh it off as being completely ridiculous. But it's basically the same sort of concept. It's just a friend. That person is just a friend. Nothing more than that at all. And I think with my scenario, it becomes a little bit more sensitive because Cecilia Steyn is a killer. I don't even like I've said before quite a number of times, I don't even like admitting to the fact that I used to be her best friend. So having people think that I was in an intimate relationship with her is not something I actually really like. Honestly, I don't genuinely or generally care what people think, but I felt the need that I need to clear up the facts, at least from my side, because who better to hear the truth from than the person themselves? I know who's been in my life, I know who I've felt what for, and with Cecilia Steyn, there was definitely nothing more than a friendship. At the same time, I can understand completely why people speculate and do pose this question, because nowadays, who goes to extremes in order to try save their best friend's life, to try save this person from dying, from hunger, starvation, and whatever scenario is posed before them? Nowadays, people are basically, and just to put it bluntly, selfish. Everyone is looking out for themselves. So it's extremely rare that people will go out of their way to help someone else, especially to extremes. So this is when people, I guess, ultimately resort to saying that obviously there is something more behind the scenes that we don't know about in order for it to make sense. In order for someone to care so much, there must be more than friendship. But people can honestly care and love for another person without it having any other hidden agenda or any intimate relationship, just to cut to the chase here. And in one of my recent podcast releases, The Truth of Who I Am, I explain why I am this way and who I am as a person. So that would ultimately and basically explain why I did the things I did for Cecilia Steyn in our friendship. But if I have to put aside this supposed fact, the disgust, basically how it makes me feel just at the concept of supposedly, even possibly being in a relationship with Cecilia, if I put that aside and I just look at the simple scenario where Cecilia claimed to Ria and to who knows how many other people that she and I were in an intimate relationship. Number one, well, basically it makes me laugh, because when it came to the end of the trial, nearing the sentencing, should I say, when Ria and myself got up on the stand to testify against Cecilia, suddenly the story was spun. Because originally, during my friendship with Cecilia, in my mindset, I was her best friend. Ria was acting as her mother. And after I had left, I was supposedly Cecilia's lover, and Ria was still the mother. But now, when Ria and myself got up on the stand to testify against Cecilia, the story is spun where Ria is supposedly the ex-lover, and Cecilia had absolutely no clue as to why I would get up on the stand to testify against her. So she couldn't even keep to the same lie. I mean, I know that Cecilia has an insane jumbled up web of lies that from one minute to the next, honestly, they will contradict each other. And this is how Cecilia started getting caught out. But just even on the pure basic statement that first I was claimed to be the lover, then next Ria is claimed to be the lover. She can't make up her mind. But never mind that. I mean, if you just look at the story as a whole, Cecilia only knew how to lie. That is literally it. I honestly think, looking back now, to everything that I was told, to everything that everybody was told, that if Cecilia could not lie at least once a day, she would probably legitimately stop breathing. It was just that bad. She was completely incapable of telling the truth on anything. So, of course, whatever she claimed about myself, whatever she claimed about Ria, whatever she claimed about anybody for that matter, was actually the opposite. I learned very quickly with Cecilia, or should I say I learned after I had left Cecilia, that whatever Cecilia claimed about someone else, it was something that she was doing. Whatever Cecilia said, the opposite was true. You just have to sift through her words to figure out that the opposite is actually the truth, and none of the actual spoken words are facts. It was a simpler method in order to figure her out, to know what she was doing. But at the same time, once you start, or at least once I started figuring out lies with Cecilia towards the end of my friendship with her, and stupidly confronted her on several of the lies, she would resort to completely breaking you, threatening you, or to her very common state of being ignorant. She was a brilliant actress at playing ignorant, as if she had absolutely no idea what you were talking about. I mean, for example, she could tell you something as simple as the sky had just turned green, and 2 minutes later you could tell her that she had just told you that the sky had gone green, but the sky is actually blue, and she will deny it, and in such a simple yet perfect way that you would honestly think you are losing your mind, that you were hearing things, that you were delusional. She was just that good at manipulation. She was just that good at acting. But I'm getting off topic now. Another thing, just to go back to topic, before Ria had gone on to the stand, I had met with Ria in one of the offices across from the High Court. It was a moment I'll never forget. Two people reuniting over such a tragic and devastating experience. And it was extremely emotional. And we spoke about quite a number of things, most of which I will never relate. But the one thing that we did speak about is this nonsense story about Ria having supposedly been Cecilia's lover, and then Ria telling me that Cecilia claimed that I was supposedly her lover. That's actually when I first found out about that lie. And between the two of us, we knew straight there and then that it was nonsense. I mean, we had nothing to lose or gain in telling each other the truth, and we knew each other pretty well. So we both knew that this was a lie, and we knew that whatever Cecilia said was a lie. So it was a very easy topic to sway off, or rather just put into the huge pile of nonsense that Cecilia spread about everybody. And also, I just have to add that I know there will be some critics who will still want to say they say or voice their own thoughts and opinions about whatever. And people are free to think and say whatever they want to, because it's your opinion. You didn't live our lives. You didn't live our truth. So you can think whatever you want. We know the truth at the end of the day. But if you just take into account the simple, pure basic fact that when Ria and myself got up on the stand in High Court and testified and confessed to having been part of many scenarios that we were both so ashamed to have been manipulated into, scenarios that ashamed is not even the right word to say or use, but we confessed to it, we admitted to it, as hard as it was. So if myself and if Ria had actually been in a relationship with Cecilia, in all honesty, that would be a very, very minor factor to confess to or to admit to, compared to anything and everything else that we were manipulated into. So I suppose even at this point now, I have thoughts busy running through my mind, thinking, why on earth am I busy thinking I should clear up this fact about whether or not I have been in a relationship with Cecilia Steyn that was more than a friendship. And I honestly think it just boils down to, I'm tired of being asked this question, so let me just state it once and for all. There was honestly nothing more than just a friendship.